as does other statements Rivera made after being completely advised of his rights. Rivera is set to go on trial later this year on a charge of first-degree murder.
All right, this is one of those stories where I think we got to look at the big picture. Let me bring back in my think tank because I want to see their faces as I throw this all out here. All right. I understand and I appreciate criminal defense attorneys. I understand we need them for our system to work. But the only reason they recovered her body was because of the statements that he made. Some of those statements will be thrown out because of improper Miranda warnings. I get that. But there are 4 other people who were investigated here. What should we think if during the course of this trial, the defense tries to point the finger at someone else? What does that tell us, Judge? What does that tell us? If they try to point the finger at someone else did this, maybe one of the 4 other people who were investigated.
Well, it could go to maybe he had knowledge and that someone else was actually the person that did it. So, that's the way that I would go with that situation, is that maybe he learned the information from someone else and therefore he was able to lead police to the location, not that he necessarily did the crime.
And Christa, this is the thing that I understand has to be done for our system to work, right? But I think it's where we got to point out there's a difference. There's a different role that prosecutors have than defense attorneys. Prosecutors cannot argue anything that they believe is not true. Correct?
Correct.
Prosecutors got to argue for the truth. Defense attorneys don't.
That is true, but also tell fibs to folks when they're being interrogated. And I think that while as a prosecutor you have to do what you know is right and what you believe to be true, a defense attorney can say and should say and do everything he can to fight for his client's rights at the time of trial, and I get that.
Yeah, Nima, and this is the part that is so tricky for me, because I think most jurors, when they come in a courtroom, they see a prosecutor on one side, a defense attorney on the other side, and they see no difference. They just know that one is for one side, one is for the other side, and they're kind of the same. But they couldn't be more different in what their job is ethically and in reality. Do you think we should tell jurors this ahead of time? That prosecutors can't argue things that they don't believe are true, but defense attorneys can?
No.
Well, that's why prosecutors are the white knight there, Vinny. But look, let's be honest. Riviere here, he's factually guilty. The only defense that he has is to get these statements knocked out, right? They dropped the ball. They provided incorrect Miranda warnings, but they provided correct ones. Some hours later, about 6 hours later, he still confessed. He told them where the body is. So he's a murderer. At best, he's a co-conspirator or accomplice or an accessory to murder. But there's no doubt that he's guilty. Was he the one to stab Molly here? And I know the defense is raising other DNA and hair and so forth in the trunk of his car, but like you said, the defense can say anything they want, and it doesn't have to be true. They're just there to try to convince the jury to get their guy off.
And are you saying that being there means that he's guilty?
Well, knowing where the body is, absolutely. I mean, he's guilty of something. It's either murder or conspiracy to commit murder or an accessory to murder or an accomplice. I mean, you don't know where the bodies are buried unless you're a murderer.
That's not true. That's not true. You can't make that blanket statement and say that just because you know where a body is, then that makes you the murderer. Someone could have told him about it. What about that? And what if someone told him a story and told him the details? That doesn't make him a murderer.
Respectfully, Your Honor, someone is stalking a jogger. Sorry, go ahead, Vinny.
No, but I was going the same place you were going. Maybe while he was stalking her and following her in his car, he saw the murderer do it and then just watched. That might be his best defense here, huh, Judge?
Right. I'm just coming up with a defense. I am not saying that I don't believe that he possibly is the murderer. I'm just saying on the defense side as to what we have to argue and what we reasonably have to argue as defense attorneys and what we're given with. I mean, these are the facts, and it's for us to go through each and every part of the investigation process to make sure that things were done correctly. And if not, then we get those things thrown out. That's our job. And we're supposed to make sure that all of those holes are covered.
Yeah, look, the defense attorney's got to do their job. I mean, I recognize that, they have a role to play, but we're talking about reasonable doubt, and there's no reasonable doubt here. There's no reasonable defense here. So the defense can say or argue whatever they want, but that doesn't change the fact that, a young girl was murdered. And it's up to the prosecutors to pursue justice. That's their job. And it's up to the defense attorney to advocate on behalf of their client, which is not necessarily justice.
Well, and I think also we have to remember, too, in this case, there was evidence found in Rivera's car. So how do you explain that away?
Yeah, there's blood
Bingo.
in here.
All right, when we come back, we've got another story, and this one is grinding my gears.